Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. As you've heard from some of my other videos, we help financial advisors make the best decision when considering change in a lot of different ways. Giving them unbiased education on a 50,000-foot level regarding what else is out there without the commitment of full-on exploration takes, curating a manageable group of options to explore the firms that best complement their wants, their needs, their goals. But where we really add value with financial advisors is just working inside of the trenches with them when they're exploring these firms, just not highlighting the reasons why they should go somewhere, but also helping them understand some of the reasons that may give them pause. And one of the places that we see a lot of skeletons in the closet is when it comes down to the economics. All firms have different terminology, different pay structures, and we could help financial advisors align all of those different firms they're exploring side by side in a really easy way to understand so they can make the best decision possible in their due diligence. And I decided to bring on Brian Shulstad, a new consultant on our team today that has a ton of experience. He was just working with a financial advisor to help him make the best decision. And I think it's a perfect example of how we help financial advisors through the process, and a great way for you to just get a little bit more educated on how the independent broker dealer pricing works. Brian, I really appreciate you hopping on today.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Thanks for having me on. As Corey mentioned, new to Bridgemark, but this is, I think, my 23rd year recruiting, going back to around 2000, 2001, when I started as a complex and regional manager, and then moved on to a few of the larger independents, where I spent the majority of my time recruiting. But really happy to be here at Bridgemark and, now get to, as opposed to recruiting directly to an individual firm, now we can speak to really the whole field and be objective and help the advisor make the best choice for them. Because that's not always going to be the square peg in the square hole, right? Sometimes it was a square peg in a round hole. So now we can find that best solution. So I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. So happy to have you on board. When you showed this to me, Brian, the other day, I just thought it was super powerful to share with as many people as possible. Depending on which firm that you choose, economics can be greatly impacted. I think a lot of financial advisors, when they're exploring, they think that the payouts are going to be pretty similar, and that's typically not the case. And depending on which type of business that you do, that could be significantly optimized. And just like in this diagram here, $1 million producer making the right choice or the wrong choice can impact them, tens, 20s, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So can you walk through just the scenario that you helped this advisor through?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, going back and touching on payouts, if you ask most advisors what their payout is, they're going to have an answer, right? They know what their grid number is. But then you go, well, do you know what your real payout is? And they go, what do you mean? And I say, well, now most advisors have shifted primarily into the advisory space, or at least trying to. And the advisory pricing can vary drastically. Whether you're doing accounts as advisor as PM, whether you're doing accounts as advisor, where you're outsourcing that money management. In this case, we're really looking at advisor as PM. And that advisor that I was working with, he was doing around $1 million in production, around 100 million in advisory assets. So, just that good round ballpark number. What we identified in his case was that he was paying admin fees in the range of 28 to 32 bips, depending, right? So for easy math, we just rated it at 30 for this example. Now, what he didn't understand is how far that really drove down his true payout. So if you look at firm A, he was being charged on average 30 bips. That was costing him roughly $300,000 a year, bringing his, and he was at a 92% payout percentage. But the reality is his payout percentage, and I didn't break that down, but it's actually 64%. Which is very different from what he could be realizing that some other firms with the same grid percentage. Okay. So, some other firms that we deal with.
Brian, why don't you just stop for 1 second and just help like a financial advisor that is maybe making a move from like an employee firm to, or even from an independent firm, like how, like what an
Right.
admin fee is and how, like if they're charging 1%, how it impacts their take home pay. I think it's important for them to understand.
Right. So in this case, you're looking at 100 million, and let's say on average you're charging 1%. Your assumption is, hey, I'm making $1 million in revenue, but that's not your net revenue. The admin fees that are being charged, by your firm, or program fees, or whatever wordage they may use, that's a layered fee that comes on right after you charge that fee to the client. So the firm fee is coming out of that client fee, right? Before your payout comes into play, right? So your true payout in a firm A prior to the grid, is closer to 70%, right?
Yep.
With a 30 bip layered fee. Now, if you were charging 1.3%, let's say, and I can change that, then that's going to adjust, 1.3, you're still being charged that 30 bips, right, by the firm. That doesn't change, right? So in this case of firm A, if you truly wanted to get a 92% payout or 92%, return on your $100 million, you have to up your fee to 1.3. Okay. Now, that being said, okay, let's take it back down to 1%. This is the payout percentage that you could closely match, even going down to a much lower reduced admin fee charge. So what you start realizing as you peel it back, and this is always just one piece of the puzzle, but when you're solely focused or primarily focused on the advisory platform, this is going to be a substantial difference in how that will impact your business. Okay. So other firms charge different fees, and they may layer them in different manners. But in this case, we've got firm B charging roughly 20 bips, firm C at 12 bips, and firm D at 3 bips. And this is all on the same asset grid level, right? Majority of firms base their admin fee based on the amount of assets that you have in total on the advisory platform. There are a few firms that charge by account size, right? So each individual account may be charged a different rate. But eventually you can get down to a blended rate to determine what those numbers are. And that's what Corey and I are here to do, to help you out, to ultimately figure out what are you truly paying, because it is substantially different. If you look at the full math on this and the variation or the delta between firm A and firm D, the highest charging and the lowest end in this example, you have a difference in net take home of almost $250,000, charging the exact same fee to the clients. Sorry, I got a phone call there. I guess somebody was listening to the podcast.
No, well, I think this is really important to align, Brian, because when people are taking a look at 4 firms, it's 15 hours plus per firm. They're running their business, they're taking care of their family, they're not doing all at once. So they get down to the economics at the end of this, and there's kind of fatigue going on. People aren't really paying attention. And I can't tell you how many times people have gone to a firm A or a firm B, and they've called me 2 years later and have just said, Corey, I didn't even know I had to pay this. I saw 20 basis points on a pro forma or profitability analysis, but I didn't really take the time to see like how that's going to continue to impact me as I grow, because at $1 million in production, at a 30 basis point admin fee, you're paying $300,000, but at 2 million, it's 600,000. It's constantly eating into the profitability of your business.
Right. And you'd be surprised how many advisors who are extremely dedicated, extremely analytical individuals, but they do have a lot going on. And during the recruiting process, they may be talking to, 3 to 10 different firms, right? And during that time frame, they have pricing sheets put in front of them by different firms. They have pro formas put together, by different firms. But ultimately, what sticks in their mind that I find is that they're thinking payout. They think their payout percentage. They'll think of, if they do have brokerage business, what's the payout there? If they do have advisory business, what's the payout there? The advisory fees tend to get lost in the shuffle, unless you just really peel it back and put that together. Because they want to do the simple math in their head. But at the end of the day, you really need to identify what's going to be that longer term value proposition from the firm on a cost basis. And that leads into the other piece, which is when you get blinded necessarily by upfront money, right? That upfront piece can be the shiny object that comes into play with, you may be getting 100% or approaching 100% or more of a transition piece, but that makes you forget about the 20 or 30 bips that are being charged, in this case by firm A and firm B. So you want to weigh those pieces together, look at the short-term financial solution, but more importantly, what is that long-term impact going to be on the ongoing cost from that advisory platform?
Sure. And just one more thing to add, Brian. This pro forma or profitability analysis is for a financial advisor that had a lot of rep SPM fee-based business where they're running the models themselves. And you mentioned it earlier in this video, but the pricing for financial advisors that want to be asset gatherers and not portfolio managers, the pricing is just as different when it comes from broker dealer to broker dealer on the outsourced fee-based pricing as well. So firm A in that instance can be north of 60 basis points, where
right, I can put that in. Yeah,
there's even some firms out there on the firm B side, on the lower paying side, that are closer to 0 basis points. So all firms out there just have different value propositions and are trying to be competitive in different ways, and just aligning yourself with a consultant that knows to align you with the firms that are going to best complement your business can be really, really impactful.
right. And I adjusted those numbers to really play and it separates even further. But you do have to understand, a lot of advisors, the reason they're being advisor as PM is because it was the lowest cost advisory solution. But in reality, for them to really grow their business, they would prefer to outsource that. And that's where you look at even a larger separation of what the cost structures are. I mean, some of these, firm D could be as low as 0 in some cases. Where they have in-house money management where you can leverage that. I mean, in this example, if the advisor has converted their entire $1 million in revenue, I mean, now you're looking at roughly over $500,000 in difference. So this is very complicated when at the end of the day, for an advisor that is managing their business, trying to grow, managing their staff, etc. There are a lot of balls in the air to juggle and go through the thoughts of a transition. That's why, it's extremely helpful to leverage, the experience that Corey and I both have. We both helped hundreds, if not, thousands of advisors make a move.
Absolutely. Brian, I really appreciate your time today. I think this is gonna, help a lot of people. If any financial advisors have questions about this, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Brian at bridgemarkstrategies.com. They can find me on LinkedIn, just Brian Shulstad. There aren't too many Shulstads out there, so I'm pretty easy to find. And they can always call me or text me. 770-715-7140. Happy to help in any manner that I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. If this is your first video, there's hundreds of other videos on my channel just answering the top 100+ questions that financial advisors have asked over the years to me in a really easy to understand manner that you could learn about at your pace. I really hope this was helpful, and I hope we can talk soon.